there was a fake electrical box that went up to the master bedroom that was blocked off from the other side.
Holy
What?
shit.
So it was like a little food slot where they could put stuff in. And we kind of all theorized that that's where that little girl and that little boy came from.
All right, everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Ectoplasm and Evil.
Ectoplasm and Evil, let's go.
Man, I can't believe we're 5 in.
Yep, you're doing it.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
And today's a very special episode because it's our first episode with a caller.
Yes, we finally have our first guest, and I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot more callers in the future. And by the way, if you want to be a caller, you know how to get in touch with us. You just DM either of us on Instagram at our personal pages or on the Ectoplasm and Evil page, or you can email ectoplasmandevil@gmail.com.
Absolutely. Please get in touch with us. Also, 420 is coming, and we want your Haunted While High
That's
stories.
right. Oh, shit. Yeah, it's right upon us.
It's right upon us.
So we need those Haunted While High stories.
We need them like right now.
We have one really good one.
We do.
From one of our followers, Elizabeth.
Yes.
It's great. It takes place in Trinidad.
Yes.
But we'd like more.
And call in. Feel free to call. We could do a call in.
We would love to do a call.
Yeah, it would be so fun to feature all of you sharing your stories.
The only prerequisite is that you have to have been high while you were haunted.
Absolutely. That's the whole point of Haunted While High.
That's the whole point of Haunted While High.
So please, hit us up with your Haunted While High stories. Connect on a call, and it'll be a good time.
We love good stories. And speaking of good stories, today's episode has a really good story.
It was so scary.
It was like a fucking movie.
It was, truly.
Our storyteller is a guy named Mark, and he's been a supporter of my music since 2015, way back in the day.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a true fan.
That's a true fan. And it's really cool that when he saw we were doing this podcast, he hit us up to say, hey, I got a story to share.
Yeah, it was super exciting. It's always so nice to have someone who genuinely supports your content.
Absolutely.
Be a part of your content.
Yeah.
So very
and man,
exciting.
did he deliver with this story.
He did. Actually, honestly, his storytelling skills were so up there. It was incredible. He was really good at it.
Good storyteller. He had all the details.
Yeah.
I was intrigued from start to finish.
Yeah, like when I tell my ghost story, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place with it and I like stop a lot, but he was on a roll. He just knew exactly what he came to say.
It was movie style with the reveals that were made.
Yeah.
Right?
If you watch, you'll see points where our jaws literally drop.
Yeah. I was definitely captivated.
Yeah, he killed it.
Yeah, so this is a really cool story to have for our first caller.
Yeah. Our dog, Aloran, also had some great cameos.
This was a pet-heavy episode.
It was a pet-heavy episode.
Because Mark had a dog and a cat.
Yeah.
And Olo was here with us.
Yeah.
Olo was sitting in my lap. Poor guy is healing up from his surgery.
He is.
Feel terrible for him, and he was really going off during the episode. It's just that he has so much pent-up energy. Because he's healing up from the surgery, he's not allowed to really like walk around, jump, play, do anything like that. So we have to take him on very like controlled walks just in the house. He's not allowed to go outside. So I think at all times throughout the day, he just wants to like jump around. I mean, he's a puppy. He's got that puppy energy.
He wants to live.
Yeah, so it's very sad.
It's really, really heartbreaking.
You'll see during the episode, he was like popping off in my lap.
He was. And Mark's cat at one point paws his chest during the episode. I kept that in because it was the cutest fucking thing I've ever
that was
seen.
adorable. It was a beautiful cat.
It was a beautiful cat. Both the dog and the cat.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Great pets. Mark has great pets.
Yeah.
And he's a great pet owner.
Yeah. Well, I guess without further ado,
should we get into today's episode?
Let's get into today's episode.
For all the listeners out there, I just want to give some quick context. So Mark is one of my oldest supporters out there. Ever since I started releasing music in 2015, I think Mark was one of the first people that kind of discovered me. And you've been super supportive since that time, man. So I definitely just want to say shout out to you and thank you. It's so nice that you've kind of like kept in touch along the journey. I mean, 2015 is how fucking long ago? My math is so bad. Like 8 years?
It's a different lifetime for me, for sure. It was a trip. I was thinking about it the other day when I first started like seeing your music and stuff like that. Like I was so hyped that someone else was coming out of the hood, you know, stuff like that. And you were rapping about a whole bunch of different types of stuff. Your music always had a different like content level to it than a lot of people. You know, you layered your lyrics really well. And your rhyme schemes were really dope. And I was super, super into that, especially at that time. I was getting into music myself. And you were definitely one of my favorite artists.
Really appreciate it, man. You have no idea how much that means to me. There's a few people that like kind of discovered my stuff really early, and I always remember everybody's names and the support that you guys would give me. So how awesome that we're getting on a video call to do this now.
Yeah, it's a trip for me, man. I'm like, I'm kind of, I want to say starstruck a little bit, you know?
Nah, I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. Well, life events have definitely put music on a slower stall for me, but I'm about to re-release everything I had in the vault in a major way, man. So I'm
excited for that.
Yeah, man. Honestly, just kind of seeing you on Zoom right now is making me even more hyped to do it because I'm remembering, that era. So we're going to do it better than ever.
Yeah, no, go Tenn, man.
Yeah, my guy, my guy. Cool. So, Mark, you responded to one of our stories and you said that you had some pretty scary stories, or at least a scary story to share with us. You gave me like a very bare bones background, which I'm glad because I want to hear the story in full now. Yeah, man. Without further ado, tell us your story.
Well, I mean, it's got a lot of backstory to it too. So I mean, I want to give it in its full like raw form.
Yes.
Please give us all the detail, and then
we have the time.
We have the time. Give us all the detail. Right. If you don't mind, like along the way, if we have a little question here and there, we'll stop you and get clarity.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool.
So this is the house that I grew up in, was a double wide mobile home, and there was a back attachment added to it at some point in time before we moved in. Now, a little bit of backstory on this. This house is in California, and it is in probably one of the worst neighborhoods that you can get around there. And that's going all the way back to like the 70s and 60s when this house was, manufactured and put on this property. So as a kid, I think all kids are kind of like sensitive to spectral beings and being able to see stuff like that because they're not like, oh, that doesn't exist, like they don't have any preconceptions. And when I would sleep in my dad's room, he had this big open closet that he had his dresser in and had all of his jackets and stuff hanging up on top. And every night I would lay over on my side, and there was a little boy's head that would pop out of the jacket and just stare at me all night long. Wow. I freeze up. I think I was like 5 or 6 at that time.
So
first time I saw it.
Was this to the point where it was happening on a nightly basis, or just like every once in a while?
Yeah, things happened all of the time in this house. It was terrifying. Yeah, let's put it that way.
And so something like seeing the little boy's head, did you tell your family about that at all?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a thing. I'm adopted, but on my adoptive mom's side, they have, I guess people call it like witch's blood. They're all super, super sensitive to that, even as they go into adult. They can sense those types of things and pick up on astral beings and stuff like that other people, to get older, you stop seeing that.
Right.
And it was all throughout our family, it was like said that this house is definitely haunted. Like there's some evil thing here. And there was several beings, this boy being one of them, but there was one other one, which I believe was his sister, and she would only ever appear in the hallway.
Okay.
And like think OG horror movie, white gown, pale skin, dark hair. And thinking about that, it does sound kind of generic, but it was like what it was. And she would just stare at you. Neither one of these were threatening, but they're scary because you don't know, like,
of course,
you can't do anything if it attacks you. You can't.
Right. Yeah.
And then a little bit later, I think I was 7 or 8, and things were starting to kind of get a little bit more hectic in my family and chaotic. My stepmom had come into the picture, and she herself was like pretty negative energy ringing into the household and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I remember my Uncle Robbie stayed with me one time when my dad went to work, and he went outside, and I was sitting, there was an island in the kitchen and a couple bar stools, and I would always sit there and play with my Spider-Man. Like, you remember those big Spider-Man action figures, but they were like big.
Fuck yeah. Yeah. I had one myself. Yeah.
I still have it somewhere, but I don't know where it's at. But I'd always play with him. And we had a window because it was a mobile home. The mobile homes always had a window that went into the back kitchen.
Yeah.
Had a laundry room back there because of the addition on the mobile home. So when you would go around the corner into the kitchen, there was a window and you go into the back, and back there was the washer room, and then 2 rooms on the side right here. I felt nothing like that in my life before. And this thing was just like pure, like black. There was no like, it was just like pure evil basically. And then the last thing that I remember was it just shifted through the wall at me and went through me. And I woke up. Like 30 minutes later, my Uncle Robbie was like, what happened?
Get the fuck out of here.
Wow. Did it feel like anything? Like, was it cold?
The best way that I could feel, it was like just dread. Like my body was just like lead. There was nothing that I could do about it. That feeling is what overtook me. Was that I just like, no matter what, even if I tried, I couldn't do anything about this. So I just it just made me give up.
Approximately how old were you when that happened?
7 or 8, around there.
Okay. So this thing jumps through you and you wake up 30 minutes later. Now, when you wake up, do you feel like you've been possessed? Like, what do you feel like once you wake up?
I felt great actually, which was what was kind of weird because
Okay.
my uncle said as I had slipped off the stool and hit my head on the countertop, but I had a weird red mark, almost like an X, which didn't make any sense. Counters don't make X marks on your head.
No,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
definitely not.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I was young, so I was just like, okay, whatever. That I guess that I was just imagining things, but I still was like, there's no way I could have imagined that. Like
I
that
doubt
was
it. It sounds too vivid to imagine,
Oh, yeah.
especially with the X.
Yeah. And from that point on, things kind of just got worse in the house. I didn't see the older girl or the younger boy anymore. It was almost weird. When I would come home from school, I would walk through that door and it felt like everything just didn't matter anymore, in a bad way. Like everything was just like, there's no chance of escaping this place. Like you would literally hit the door frame and it was just all negative energy.
Yeah.
And it was very, very like noticeable. You'd walk in there and you'd be happy, and then you'd just be like, what the fuck is going on?
Did that feeling affect your whole family as well? Or do you think that you were feeling it anymore?
What I think happened is because everything was getting more hectic and chaotic, and there was a lot of fights going on in the household at that time. The worse that it got, the more that these apparitions appeared, and the more like interactive, I guess you could say, they were, they were on with you
when you were like feeding off of it, kind of.
That makes sense, because that's what people have said, that these types of entities feed off of negative energy.
Yeah. And myself, I've done a lot of research, and I've messed with this stuff quite a bit. Having this, being my household growing up, I wanted to see if I could learn how to protect myself. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, fast forward like 7 years, and I was starting to have these nightmares, and they would range from a whole bunch of different things, just nightmarish things. But what was the huge takeaway was when I would wake up is I would have marks on me from where I was being attacked.
Get out. What kind of marks?
Scratches, bruises?
Scratches. Sometimes I'd be bleeding and stuff like that from some of the marks. And in these dreams, there was just that dark being. It wasn't it wasn't a man, it wasn't a woman. It was just like a shadow figure.
Yeah.
And I had to run through the woods and try to figure out how to get away from it. And it would always just grab me and just like eviscerate me and kill me. And then that's when I would wake up and I'd have all of these like marks where it was attacking me.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Was it ever on your face as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had marks on my face a lot from it. They were never like so bad that it was like the ones that would bleed would be like little driplets, like if someone like scratched you with their nail or something like
right.
that.
Like you don't have any scars from this?
I don't. No, I don't have any scars. None of them were that bad per se. They were more like welts, bruises, stuff like that. So definitely lots of scrapes, but most of them did not draw blood.
Right.
Was it a situation where, like, when these wounds were fresh, people were asking you in school, like, yo, what happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'd be like, dude, I don't like, I was dreaming some crazy stuff and woke up like this. And they'd always be like, dude, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with your house? I don't want to go over there anymore.
Did your parents question you? Like, and when you said, hey, I woke up like this after this dream, was anybody like, we should do something?
See, I would always talk to my dad about that type of stuff because I felt like if anyone knew what to do, he would,
Yeah.
And he never really believed me on that stuff, partially because I was still a young kid. I feel like he was just like, yeah, whatever. You probably just like did that to yourself. So making up a story,
Right.
As most adults would be, nowadays.
Yeah. It seems to be a common thread.
Yeah. People don't want to believe in these things, but it's hard to disapprove of it when you have so many, like experiences with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're the only one who had like the nightmares and the physical scratches in the family.
It seemed like I was the only one that they like messed with.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were a target.
Were you the youngest?
Yes, I was. Maybe that's a reason why.
Yeah.
The weakest, I guess you could say. But I was also the direct source of a lot of the negativity around the household was being directed at me. I was adopted. And then when my stepmom came in, I was kind of like the redhead stepchild.
Oh my God.
Like I was the scapegoat, all that stuff. So I think that partially they were feeding off of the energy from her admitting it and then latching on to me because I was so tired from fighting all of the time that my defenses were down themselves.
Right.
So, perfect storm for them to come in and swoop up and leech.
Man. So you're a teenager now, you're waking up with you're having these dreams, you're waking up with wounds on you. Where does it go from there?
So actually I had these dreams all the way up until it was a weird thing because at some point in time, I realized I had to stop running from it in the dream. Like these dreams were so vivid that I was there. Like, it wasn't like I was dreaming. Like, when I would go to sleep, I would wake up in my bed in the dream.
Right.
And it would start from there. So I thought I was just still like going to sleep and thought I heard something inside my room.
Right.
So I'd get up out of my bed and I wouldn't even realize that I'm sleeping at that point.
Right.
You know, it was a weird transition, but I had to stop running from it. And I got to a point in the forest. I took a different path and got to a point where there was a sword and a tree stump, and it was like sunk in there all the way down to the hilt. And every time I would try to grab it, this thing would just come, like, I would be trying to pull it up and it would just rake my back, and I would just, like, you know, I was done. The thing's claws were so big that it would just like cut through me, like, completely. Damn. I eventually figured out that there was chains on this shadow figure that was chasing me, and I got a crazy idea because I'd had this dream at probably 150 times at this point before I started to learn how to fight back. So I was pretty used to the being eviscerated and waking up with scratches. You know, it became pretty normal. And I got the chains and wrapped it around this beast and just ran as fast as I could, and I felt it breath on my back as it was lunging at me. And chains were wrapped around its neck. And when it got to the end of the rope where the sword was attached to it, it just yanked its own head off from the sheer force that it was pulling to get at me. Its head just like ripped back.
So you defeated it?
I guess you could say that. And then I never had that dream again.
Get out of here.
Wow.
Was that part of, earlier you mentioned that you started researching how you could protect yourself? Is doing that stuff in the dream, is that part of stuff that you looked up, like, I should be lucid dreaming, something like that?
Yes, I went down the lucid dreaming rabbit hole and started to learn how to be more in control of myself, because I was running into things like you're trying to run, but you're not going anywhere.
Right.
But I was still so present in these dreams that I felt like if I tried a little bit and pushed a little bit harder, that I could control things. And it may sound like super easy per se, because it's like your own brain, but when your brain is saying, oh, you have dead legs and you're in a dream state, it's have to emit energy so powerful that it breaches through your dream state, goes into your real brain, and then comes back through. Like, it has to break through that whole barrier to come back in a loop.
That's so interesting. Well, Swasti has a bit of experience.
Yeah. I used to have these crazy nightmares as a kid. Not like you. It wasn't like necessarily an entity, but like people attacking me or whatever my fears were at the time. And it never manifested itself physically, but I did have to learn. And I didn't even know lucid dreaming was a thing. I just within a dream one day was like, this is my fucking dream, so I'm going to do what I want. And then I just like started creating my own scenarios. So it ended up working out like that. But I think, for me, it was realizing, wait, this is a dream and it's my dream. So I'm going to control my outcome of my dream.
Exactly.
And manifest what I need to.
That barrier gets a lot easier after that.
So you have this dream, you decapitate this motherfucker with chains. And after that, the activity completely stops?
Yeah, there was nothing left. And then, like, you fast forward till I was about like 18, and my dad is starting to tell me stuff about the family, and you start getting the little secrets once you turn into an adult.
Sure.
And he said that after I had told him about me having those dreams and all of the ghosts that everyone was seeing in the house, and because he had seen the little girl one time too, and he was always a super skeptic. So he was like, no, I was just imagining that because you guys are talking about it all the time.
Right.
Like, you were playing some brain tricks on me here. But he told me that he talked to the owner of that trailer that had owned it before that addition was built onto it. And he's talking to the owner, and he's like, yeah, so here's the thing. I was doing some measurements inside the house because I was going to redo some flooring, and I measured it from the outside, and it was like 30 foot long on the room. And when I measured it inside, it was like 20 foot.
So something is hidden.
So something was hidden. So I took it amongst myself to basically put a hole in the wall and found a little compartment that had old bedding, silverware, and a little bowl.
What?
That's so fucking creepy.
Here's the even creepier part. There was a fake electrical box that went up to the master bedroom that was blocked off from the other side.
Holy shit.
So it was like a little food slot where they could put stuff in. And we kind of all theorized that that's where that little girl and that little boy came from.
Oh my God.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, and whoever that dark presence was the one that did all of whatever he did to them.
Holy shit.
That's horrifying.
Oh boy, too.
My mind is so fucking blown right now. This is like...
Yeah, that's so...
I get shivers every time I tell this story, man.
Were you ever able to sort of delve deeper into like town records or news to see if you could find any evidence of like something having happened?
Apparently, besides the fact that that owner, when my dad was talking to him about this stuff, he started getting pissed off. Like he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And like he started being super shady.
Oh.
And from what I understood, his brother had a little boy and a little girl.
Oh, fuck.
Lived there before he did.
So it was him.
Yeah. And he died in that trailer. And we never got enough information out of him to tell what happened as a kid. But it was like missing children's lists, you know, but it happened. This guy was living there in like the 50s and 60s. So who knows if that was ever recorded, you know?
It might not have ever been documented.
Yeah.
Damn. So you have a fucked up guy living there who has 2 kids. He's keeping them in horrendous conditions and abusing them in God knows what ways.
Yeah.
He passes away. Their sort of spirits are lingering on, obviously, maybe not having achieved closure or something like that. And his evil that he represented in life stayed on after death and just was looking for any other weak or childlike spirits to haunt.
Yeah, to torment.
To torment, yeah. I really wonder if after you defeated that motherfucker and decapitated him, if the spirits of those children were able to move on. I would venture to say almost yes.
Because you stopped seeing them too when this thing came around.
Yeah, I did. You know, I never really thought about that beforehand, but maybe, yeah, I saved him.
Dude, this is like a movie, man.
That, you know, that would be a good movie.
It would be. It's a little bit Coraline-esque.
I was going to say that those details are reminiscent of Coraline, the way the children were kept and the way the creature, the guy was just awful.
Yeah,
wow.
No, you know, I don't have that reference. I don't think I've ever watched that movie.
I highly suggest. How old is your daughter?
She's 2.
Okay, when she gets more like maybe 5 or 6, you should watch it with her.
Oh, I definitely will. I've started her on the good stuff, you know, Studio Ghibli films.
So yeah, then you know what's up. So since that time, you've been able to live your life without any paranormal interference.
That's actually kind of the funny part, is that I feel like a lot of the times when I do stuff, or, you know, I'm starting new ventures, like when I moved out here, it seemed like everything goes wrong for me. And that's not like an excuse for me to not do stuff. You know, I prepare for everything to go wrong at this point because I'm so used to it. But it's always felt like me and my dad had a curse on us.
Oh my God.
For whatever reason. And that was a pretty reoccurring thing. And what I found is that there was some part of that house that was still latching onto him.
Onto your dad.
Yeah. And through that, it was still latching onto me.
Get out.
So this spirit had found a way to hold on to whatever last bit of negative energy and somehow planted itself in my dad in its lowest form. And I think he did that because it was the best match, because my dad also had a son,
right,
and an older daughter.
Right.
It was the same thing being played out. So some things happened between me and my dad in those following years, some pretty rough stuff. And I eventually just broke up any contact that I had with him.
Okay.
And from that point on, I had started doing protection runes on everything that I had. You know, I would cleanse wash. Started doing all of the witchy stuff, you know, making moon water, and really just trying to cleanse myself of any negative energy or things that had latched onto me. I went all the way from, you know, using druid magic all the way to Viking runes and ancient European magic and Chinese medicine. You know, I tried a little bit of everything just to make sure that.
So this is clearly something that you've taken very seriously to protect yourself again.
And once I had my daughter was when everything kind of felt like it was washed away. You know, I felt like it was finally that chapter of my life was kind of like done with, and any connection that I had to it was gone.
Well, that's amazing, man. I love a happy ending.
Yeah.
I went back and it looked even more decrepit and weird than it had before.
Wow.
But I hadn't felt any of that super negative dark energy. It just felt like a place that you shouldn't go into.
Right.
You know, and I think that's maybe because I never stepped foot on the property line. I was afraid that something was going to grab me again.
Yeah.
So I
listen, better safe than sorry, bro.
Absolutely.
Exactly, especially with that type of stuff. It's easy to get got, but it's not that easy to get away from that stuff, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Damn, man, that's crazy.
Oh, did you have any pets when you were younger and all this was happening?
Yes, I actually had a dog, a pit bull blue nose named Ranger. And he would always sleep with me, and he would freak out sometimes.
I bet, because they're so sensitive to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what I did notice is that my cats were the ones that were super freaky. And if you ever see your cats laying on the corners of your bed, they're protecting you.
Wow.
Ah.
And you had 2 cats?
Yeah. and they would always sit right at the edge of the corners of my bed, and they'd always look 45-degree angle.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
And if you get into any type of witchcraft, a lot of the time cats are used as, their eyes are used as portals. You can use their eyes as portals into different realms.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You know what? I actually have heard that in other cultures, like multiple cultures kind of have that. Hopefully it's not a stupid comparison, but like in the Mummy, right? How the one thing the Mummy was scared of before he was fully regenerated was a cat, guardians of the underworld and all that. It's like kind of transcends cultures.
They walk between worlds.
There you go. And you know
Coraline.
what? That's in Coraline.
Yeah, that's in Coraline. The cat walks between worlds as a cat.
Wow. That sounds like you got to watch that movie ASAP, bro.
I do. That actually sounds like it's an animated cartoon, right?
It is. Yeah. Hybrid animation and claymation, if I'm correct.
I think you're right.
Definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, man. Now you mentioned that you had an older sister. Was she experiencing anything at the same time?
She was one of the ones that saw the girl a lot, and she saw the little boy a lot too. She the little boy in the closet. She had seen him a few times. It was almost the same age as her. This little girl was, which was what was weird was they were all like perfectly matched to us.
Right.
Wow,
which goes with what you were saying.
Pretty freaky.
Yeah. So it was like a little boy my age, say mid-teens girl. And then there's just this giant black energy being, which I could guess is the manifestation. And the reason why a lot of those beings don't keep their form when they die is because their energy is too malicious for their containers to hold. So they shed it, just become basically dark walled energy.
Wow.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
And if you really get into this type of stuff, what I found useful is because like a lot of it is you'll run into a lot of things that aren't true, right? There's a lot of made up stuff. People who do witchcraft books, sometimes they're just like making it as a joke and making their own little like magic class or whatever,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You start getting into the literature and cross-referencing across cultures, you'll start to see common themes. And that's kind of what you latch on to, is the things that you can see repeated across cultures, because back, especially in older books, they didn't have ways of communicating.
Right.
Like they didn't have Google. They didn't even have trading routes at that point in time. It was all shipped. So they weren't shipping books across seas. So you see a lot of things that are true. And like in Japanese culture, you have a lot of beings that I forget the name of it, but it's a really famous one that if you ever heard of creepypasta. Yeah. Okay. So it was like, I can't remember the name of it, but it's one of those Japanese ones that it's when you drink, this thing will appear to you and hunt you down and kill you. And it's like a woman, and you'll see similar beings, similar attributes, kind of the same traumatic stories to bring them into existence.
Yeah.
Cross cultures. And to me, that is a good way to sift through things that are true and what's not, because back then they didn't have a way of sharing that.
That's such a great point. That's interesting. We touched upon that in the first episode of our podcast, because we were talking about Guyanese like supernatural folklore, and when we were touching upon the Caribbean vampiric creature, which is called Olhaig, there's certain vampire attributes that are cross-cultural, that are, like you said, before people could share information that easily, such as vampires are compelled to count things and stuff like that. That comes from the Caribbean, that comes from China, that comes from Europe. So it's like, well, that seems like it's probably a thing.
Yeah, there's some merit to it.
There's some merit to it. Yeah. Dude, well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for sharing that story, man. It was a really, really good one.
It's a good story. I have one more question though.
Ask it.
Yeah.
Did the little girl and little boy ghost ever speak to your sister?
From what I can recollect, they never talked.
Okay. They just didn't talk to anyone.
And I feel like a lot of the time some beings don't, because they are not powerful enough to break that barrier. But I would say that they did communicate through making you feel things, because sometimes when I would see the little boy, I would not be terrified.
Right.
I'd be like, hey, what's up, little bud?
Right.
I hope you're doing good, and I felt like a lot of the time they were emitting that energy towards me, whether or not they were just trying to get my attention.
Yeah.
When they were trying to scare me, I would feel chaotic energy. And after the first few times, it was the little boy was just playing with me.
Right.
Like he was playing peekaboo.
Because he's just a kid. He's just a kid, and he didn't necessarily mean any malevolent harm.
Yeah, exactly. He was just having fun.
Yeah, he was just like, gotcha. You know, and even though he didn't talk, I could always tell why he was appearing at that time.
Right.
Sometimes he would peek out and like kind of play peekaboo at me, and other times he would just peek his head out and just kind of stay there.
Right.
Like he wanted company.
Right.
you know. And that was what was trippy about it, is because these beings, a lot of the times, they have what seems like feelings, you know.
Yeah.
Like, what exactly gets detached from you when you die?
Yeah.
Is it just physical?
Right.
And everything else leaves with us. All of our, you know, our consciousness is maybe just now floating in space.
It kind of seems that way.
Yeah, because they're capable of emotions and making you feel empathy for them, so that, you know, it's a weird, like, where does the barrier of our realm and their realm end?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story, man. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. It was such a good story.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Man, so that was a crazy story.
Yeah. Shout out to Mark again for telling it to us. That was truly shocking.
Yeah, spine tingling. The part about that fucking hidden compartment.
Yeah, the reveal was the craziest part.
It was. I can't believe how they basically got to what the creature was.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was basically the malevolent spirit of an actual man who was abusing his children, is what it sounds like. Ah, man. Yeah,
what a piece of shit.
that's some true fucking evil right there.
Yeah, it's like almost a mix of true crime and paranormal, and we don't have the true crime half of it because the records don't exist.
Because the records don't exist, as far as we know.
As far as we know.
I'm sure it's possible maybe if somebody wanted to really dig into it, maybe they'd find something.
Yeah, maybe like old neighbors or something who lived around the same time.
Right. Or maybe not. Or maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, but either way, that evil was so strong that it lingered on.
Yeah, and then Mark fucked it up.
And Mark fucked it up. That was pretty dope.
Yeah, he decapitated that bitch.
He was a dream warrior.
He was.
You remember Nightmare on Elm Street 3?
Oh my God, yes.
Number 3, when they were training those kids to fight Freddy Krueger in the dreams.
Yeah.
I think they called it Dream Warriors. Like there was Nightmare on Elm Street 3 : Dream Warriors.
Probably.
I'm going to look it up right now.
All right.
I am correct. Confirming that I'm correct. It's Nightmare on Elm Street 3 : Dream Warriors.
And he was a dream warrior.
He was a dream warrior. He could have been in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah. He should have been in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. He was well versed in the arts.
He was, he did his research. Mm-hmm. He did what he had to do.
I think that's really cool that he knows so many ways to protect himself.
Yeah, I guess once you've gone through an experience like that, and then he kind of realized that he was on his own.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody was really listening to him or helping him out. He was like, well, I got to take charge and figure this out. And he did.
Yeah. You know, we should do an episode where we have people like share what their actual rituals are and like practice it with them or something.
Yeah, maybe we should.
I think that would be really, because it's protection.
You can't be too protected.
No, you can't.
You know what I mean?
We'll have him back for that.
Yeah.
So don't forget, reminder again, get in those Haunted While High stories. We need them. This needs to be an episode that happens.
We're going to ask on social. We'll go heavy asking on social.
We need you.
But we need them. We need them. I know y'all have them.
I don't want this to be a next year episode. I want this to be a this year episode.
Listen, even if you made one up, if it's good, tell it to us.
Yeah.
And just, we won't know.
We won't know. Soliciting fake stories.
Listen, if it's good enough, we won't know the difference.
No, that's true. If you
know
got
what I
all
mean?
your details.
You can be whoever you want to be.
That's true. If we can't poke holes in it, you fool us.
That's right. But make sure you come with the details, because if we can poke holes in it.
Yeah. If Tenn can poke holes in it, actually, that's the one person who will poke holes.
Yeah, listen, if your story just start don't add it up, you know.
He'll find out. He'll sniff you out.
That could be embarrassing.
It could be. It will be. And then we'll keep it in. Oh my God. We should totally do an episode where people like make up stories, share them with us, and we try and figure out if they're real or not.
Okay, so meaning that it could be made up, it could not be made up.
Yeah.
And the goal is it's like kind of just game show style.
Yeah,
Is
that
this
could be
fake or
fun.
not?
Yeah.
And then at the end we say, we have to decide either you made this up or you didn't.
Yeah. Could be like that Penn and Teller show.
Right. Can you fool Penn and Teller?
Yeah. Can you fool Tenn and Swasti?
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I think that's a format we could explore.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Could be a fun special.
Yeah. Maybe like a spooky time special, like a Friday the 13th or around October.
Yeah. Damn, we could have done it for April Fools.
Shit.
We missed the...
Fuck.
That seems like an appropriate time to do a
yeah.
Can You Fool Us episode.
Oh my God. Okay, next year.
Right. All right. Well, if we start pre-planning it now,
Yeah.
then we'll be ahead of the game for next year.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a plan. Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Ectoplasm and Evil. We'll see you next time.
Or will we?
Ah!